you? It's Gigi here with Earth 5D University, back for another teaching. So glad you're here. We have my little mascot here, my cat, who's going to be part of the teaching today. So welcome, guys. You might know me from Earth 5D Tarot. I am JG. I'm here to help you to live a more fifth dimensional life, to bring more consciousness to your life, and to create a life that's in harmony with your highest purpose. So I wanted to talk today, guys, about spiritual gifts. So spiritual gifts, guys, have been very, very, very much repressed by institutionalism and the patriarchy. And if you guys are interested in learning more about kind of that oppressive patriarchal energy, I'm going to link above here to my video last week that I put out. And it's about how kind of through my own consciousness journey, I share how basically I have been stuck in this kind of patriarchal vibe where the divine feminine has been suppressed. And we're not talking about gender, we're just talking about energy, the yin yang energy. So because of institutionalism and the way that the energy has been flowing on the planet for numbers of years, tens of thousands of years, our spiritual gifts have gotten really, 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 really suppressed. And so human beings are meant to be connected to not only our higher self, but to truly our inner knowledge and our inner wisdom, connecting to your senses that are beyond your five senses, okay? So because of the way the energy's been flowing on the earth, and because of the heaviness of our atmosphere, the heaviness of humans' energy, the energy of war, the energy of violence, like there should be no war on the planet. Like that should be like completely unheard of. There should be no violence. That should be completely unheard of, okay? That should be completely over with, completely done with. And alas, it's still, the remnants are still here, okay? And so because of the heaviness and because we're all connected, we're in a confluence of energy where humans are still connected with each other. So even the lowest frequency sometimes impacts us, right? Because sometimes we have horrible nightmares and I'm like, where did this come from, right? And sometimes we just have thoughts that are so negative and you're like, where is this coming from? So because humans are attached to one another energetically, we're all in a confluence of energy on the earth, on Mother Earth. Because of this, we have the ability to connect to the highest of love and the absolute lowest too, right? And so now not all feminine energy is positive, okay? For the sake of this discussion, we're going to talk about the energy of the masculine energy that has become very dominant and oppressive and very controlling and very violent and aggressive, right? And so because of that, it's been this fight or flight mentality where you're just trying to survive this energy, right? You're just trying to survive sometimes on Earth because there's a fight for resources, right? There's a fight, there's a constant battle, has been. It's changing, thank God, it's changing. But in the past, not so distant past, you know, it's been a constant survival, a constant battle just to survive, to have resources, right? Just to have food, and we're constantly competing with other people, climbing that corporate ladder, just being very aggressive with one another, being aggressive about resources. And just from my own personal experience, that was really hard for me to believe. Like, wow, people are really this mean to each other, right? People are really like this mean. And it was so difficult for me to understand coming to Earth. And so this was a gradual awareness of how broken things were. And so I hope that you can find some comfort in the fact that you're not alone, first of all, looking around and being like, what the F, right? That because of this density of energy, it cuts us off from our truth. And our truth is at the forefront of learning our spiritual gifts. And our spiritual gifts are a point of navigation around the planet. It's a point of navigation to manage down here in this frequency, this dimension. And without knowing your truth, and without knowing the gifts that you have, spiritual gifts, then you're basically like a sheep being led to the slaughterhouse, right? Because you have no understanding of how to connect to truth, me included, you know. And so I'm not saying you, I'm saying the collective you, the collective us. So, and that's why when we're so disconnected from our truth, we're just like, we watch the media, we go to church, we go to the synagogue, you know, we go to school, and we're taking all this, we're getting all bombarded with these truths. You know, it's this, it's that, this is the truth, you know. How do we know? You know, the truth, the truth, right? The truth will set you free. Okay, that's what Jesus meant by that. The truth will set you free, meaning it's not so holy, to be honest, to be truthful. I mean, it's good. I mean, I call it Mother Teresa-ish. It's good to be honest with other people because it's something we appreciate. We'd like people to be honest with us. But it's more than that. The truth will set you free because the truth will unlock your spiritual gifts. It'll unlock the wholeness that you are. Okay? So you are a beautiful whole being. But we are taught that if we look within, it's going to be like an empty cavernous of nothing, right? A lot of times, because of modern psychology and reason, and the age of reason, we think that everything is just a psychological thing, right? Everything is just part of our psyche, and there's all these broken pieces in there, and somehow we have to patch it all together to be okay. And I just want you to know that inside of you, there's a reason why every mystery school throughout creation, right, since humans became humans, and knowledge became passed down to us, I mean true knowledge of enlightenment, that we were taught to know thyself. Know thyself. Why do we have to know ourselves? It's not just to be like cutesy, you know, it's not like a totally cutesy thing to know yourself. I mean, it's not just some kind of game, or it's just not some kind of like airy fairy, oh, you should know yourself. It's like that is that is your freedom. It's your ticket to freedom, and it's your ticket to consciousness and having a life that you want. So my goal today is to help you to understand that you have gifts, just to know that you have gifts. We don't even have to start activating them yet, but I can help you with that. So the whole thing here is to be aware that you have spiritual gifts. Now, what does that mean, right? That sounds kind of weird, spiritual gifts. Well, we do, okay? So what I mean by spiritual gifts is that, you know, a lot of people talk about a third eye awakening. It's something that's become much more mainstream in our culture. We know that we have this gland called the pineal gland, and that it helps us. It actually has rods and cones like an actual eye, and it helps us to be awoke and be aware that we are a huge connected spiritual being, connected to all of creation, having a human experience here on earth, having a human experience. So this is like a basic fact. This is a basic part of being a human being, is to have a pineal gland. So that's just our 5 senses. That's not even going into the 6th senses or 7th or 8th. So we are at the place where we're like, okay, we're trying to figure out what the other 90% of our brain does, right? We're trying to figure out. So we are very undernourished. We are very underutilized in our ability to use our spiritual gifts to create. So because of this oppression, because of this darkness that's been forced upon us, ask yourself today, who am I? I know you're going to think you're your ego. You're going to say, well, I'm JGM Jen Gordon. I live X, Y, and Z. I'm a mother to these people. Fill in the blank. I have this job, you know. But that is not who you are. That is describing your identity on earth. That is describing the suit that you put on when you put your soul in the body called me and called you. You jumped into a body, you became human, and now these are the descriptors of this identity that you chose. Now, what are you outside of that? Okay, so you are a light being. You are connected to a larger group of light beings, And you are here on the planet to help also bring more light if you're watching this video. So you're not here just to take up space. You know, you're here to enjoy life, but there's part of you that also has a calling, a mission, okay? And that is to seed the planet with light. So you're bringing this light through because there's been a lot of darkness. So what this looks like is understanding that, number one, that you have psychic senses that someone's told you is probably BS, right? So when you have an impression, when you use your own thoughts, your own feelings to have an impression, that's a psychic gift. It's having a truth outside of what someone told you. And so we begin there. We begin to trust our intuition. We begin to believe that we are powerful beings of light. And every human is. It's just that the darkness has made them forget. So some people become more and more and more unconscious of why they're here. They become more and more unconscious of their truth. So starting there, starting with, okay, here I am on this planet. Who am I? What's truthful for me? What is my truth? You know, this is about awakening your spiritual life. This is about becoming the embodiment of a spiritual being on earth. And this is why you're here. So being in touch with your own intuition and beginning to trust yourself is the place to begin. And when you do that, Spirit's like, oh, great. He or she, they're hearing me. He or she, they're hearing themselves. And this goes back to the fact that we are God. You know, we are the gods of our reality. We broke off from Spirit and we came here to have a human experience. But we're still taking an active role in creation. We are creator beings, and we're here to create. So I want to give you an example of not listening to truth, okay, in my own life, because it always helps. I sit here and talk about these esoteric things and these spiritual ideas, but how does that really apply to your life, right, guys? So let me tie it back to an experience I had when I graduated college. Okay, so I graduated college a little later. I was 26 because I took some time off before I went to the university. I went to UNC Wilmington in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I absolutely loved it. I adored my time there. And when my senior year came along, I was like, oh, you know, I wasn't really dating anyone seriously till senior year. And then senior year came along, I met someone who seemed like the perfect like husband. Because I was thinking, okay, now that I'm going to graduate college, I probably have to get married, you know? And because that was what I was taught by, you know, people around me in the society that I grew up in, the culture that I grew up in, is that, you know, you go to college, you get married, you get the job, and you have the kids, right? So I found, or the universe brought me what I thought I needed, which was a very reliable, stable person who was already done with college. This person, he was an engineer and he was already working, and he was very fun, and he was the captain of the rugby team. He was playing like semi-pro rugby, you know, or something. Whatever. It was like whatever it was in my mind of someone who would be a good husband. So we got more and more serious, and then we did become engaged. You know, I graduated, we became engaged, and the families met, and we were, you know, planning a wedding. So the night before I was going to get married, right, there's stuff you got to do. But at the end of that night, my dad sat me down and he said, Jen, because he knew something. He knew I was not being honest with myself. And he said, Jen, you know, I can get you out of this whole thing now. We could just call it a day. I can get you out of this, and you don't have to go through with this marriage. Because he had a sense that it wasn't right, that I was doing it for reasons that were not my truth. And he could see that. He was kind enough to do something like that for me. I didn't take him up on it, of course. So I went through with the marriage. We were married, and you know, 6 months into it, there's this man that's wonderful, but I was not in love with him. I was not in love with him. He was just an idea of what I thought was truth. He was an idea of what I thought would be the right thing. Okay, and so this guy, was in love with me, and I wasn't feeling that. I wasn't feeling that, and I just did it for all the reasons that were not my own truth. So I ended up going to see a astrologer that was recommended to me, and she had the most shockingly bright blue eyes. I mean, just such an interesting person. She did a whole chart for me, and I sat down, and I was telling her, I'm really not happy. I just don't feel alive. And she's like, well, I can tell you why right now. So this is what I mean about the truth, okay, guys? She said the most shocking thing anyone's ever said to me. She said, the reason why you're not satisfied in your marriage is because you feel like a prostitute. Straight up, that's what she said. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, because you are physically having a relationship with someone that you do not love, that you are not in love with. And because you're committed to that, and because you're feeling like a prostitute. And I was like, oh my God. And in some ways she was right. She was right. Because here I was having it, and I'm sharing something very personal with you, right? Because I want you to understand that this type of stuff happens, and you don't have to judge yourself. You don't have to beat yourself up and be like, oh my God, such an idiot or whatever. So this is a constant challenge, is to know yourself. Had I had known myself, I would have thought, this is a great guy, I'm just not ready to get married. Or this is a great guy, but he's probably not the one for me. And I would have saved myself, my parents, all this money, all this time, right? I mean, I learned, and so that was the precious part of this, is I was able to take learning out of this, so, right? Self-knowledge. This is about knowing yourself. That's why there's never a problem with you learning. There's never a problem with you learning. You must learn. You must go through trials and tribulations. That is why we're here. That is part of why we're here, is to, when we learn, then we teach others. When we learn and we go through our SHIT, we're helping others in our own way. Okay, so I had to deal with my life, and I had to get it straightened out. And believe me, that wasn't the first time something like that happened. I very often created the same mistake over and over. My cat saying hello. I did. I was a tough, stubborn person, and I just didn't want to go through the effort of knowing who I was. I'm like, just put me with the program, right? Just put me in with what everyone else is doing. I'll just be one of those people that just follow the sheep or whatever, just follow, what everyone else is doing. I don't need to be different. I'll just follow, and it just wasn't my calling. So my calling is to be myself, to be honest, to be truthful with my life. And so that's what I've had to learn. So please know that this is a process of knowing yourself. And my body was telling me, and my heart was telling me something that I wasn't listening to. And so this is just the first spiritual gift to kind of wake up, is just the inner knowledge of what you prefer, why you're here, what you prefer. Who am I? Because that intuition is your compass. Without that, everyone else is just telling you a whole bunch of anything. I mean, I'm sure some of it's true, but what is your truth? Like, what I ask you this. Who are you, and why are you here, right? All right, so I want to show you like a little diagram, guys, just to give you a visual of how things kind of are flowing in this dimension of Earth that we call Mother Earth, right? Gaia, Mother Earth. So you guys are like this, like the seed of light that came down here. You broke off from a huge nebula of energy, and you're like this big ball of consciousness, came to Earth to seed the planet, Mother Earth. Gaia, she's alive, right? Mama Earth. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but at least I get the visual. So here on Earth, there's dimensions, and they're all kind of crossing each other. They're not vertical. Like we think of dimensions in time as straight lines, Up and down, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth dimension, right? I'm gonna climb that. I'm gonna raise my vibration. I'm gonna raise my frequency. I'm gonna get high vibrational. But it's really not like that. Its dimensions are we're crossing. It's more like a Venn diagram, much more complex Venn diagram. And so we're bouncing in and out of third, fourth, fifth, sixth dimension, bouncing in and out during the day. And so your psychic senses are going to help you to reach those little bit higher dimensions. And if we could just start by trusting yourself and just getting used to going inside and say, who's there? Is there a dark, cavernous hole in me, or is there like something else there? What's inside of you? Who are you? Right? And I challenge you to think of yourself like this, a light. I mean, I'm not talking a small light. This light is infinite. You're infinite being. And so to infinity. And then we're also thinking, oh, we're on a timeline. Here's the day I was born and here's the day I die, right? Very limited. This is a line, I'm born and then I die. It's not quite that simple. Okay, guys, so time is also like these dimensions. It's overlapping. I always say, let's see if I have, let me get the eraser. Let's get back. Okay, so time, what is time, right? Time is more like a pearl necklace, guys. And each of these are lives, okay? Each of those little circles is a life. And time just flows back and forth through this circle in the middle. Looks like the Wheel of Fortune tarot card, right? And so time is just bouncing, you're bouncing in and out. Time is circular. And you're just bouncing in and out of it, you know? And so, think about it that way. You have ancient knowledge inside of you from other lifetimes that you can draw upon. And so that's what we'll get into next week. But because I want to do a couple videos here on our spiritual gifts, okay? But the first one is to know yourself. That's a gift in and of itself. I mean, it'll take you your whole life to learn, but it's at the basis, right? And so as we are, naturally, our pineal glands are opening naturally because of the sun. So the sun is working a little bit differently in our lives, thank God. Healing the planet. You know, we're getting healing from every direction, just so you know. It's going to be very challenging not to be conscious right now because we're healing in many different directions. So the earth is giving us love. The sun is giving us love. People from higher frequency that we call star seeds, like you guys are getting love. They're getting awoke. But there's some that are very, very advanced that we call like what? ETs, extraterrestrials. But these are beings that are just from a multi-dimensional place in reality. So again, back to this time and these lives. So these lives are like infinite, right? These circle and spiral out way into different dimensions. You know, it's no way linear at all. And so there is no birth to death. There's only the birth to death of your identity, and then you just whoosh, go right back into your infinite self, and you decide what you want to do next. So, but my point here is that you can connect to all of this, and that's what we want to talk about using your spiritual gifts. All right, guys? And then I know a lot of you have these divine unions, like these twin flame unions, and that's a whole nother piece of this that we can get into. All right, guys? So I really appreciate you being with me today. I send you so much love and light, and I wish you the very, very, very best week ahead of you. And this is a timeless video, right? So people will come, they'll come to it immediately, they'll come to it whenever they need it. So I just wish you so much love and light.